Today's guest knows a lot about bees. In fact, she confided in me behind the curtain that she is a bee. And I believe this, because I always have identified as a mushroom. So when someone says they're a bee, I'm like, totally. Got you. Sherry, you know Lizzie a lot better than I do.
Yeah.
Would you like to introduce her?
Well, yes, I would actually. I have known Lizzie since 2010, and she was best friends of the retail neighbor beside my gallery. And she would visit and bring her joy into the shop. And I have met her on walks on the street near her house, up on Finney Ridge. And when she sees me, she will just offer me honey. Do you want some honey? And then she'll run inside and grab me some honey and want to know if I want clover or wildflower. And I offer her money and she'll never take it because she says the bees produce it for free. So I have to share it for free. And Lizzie is a professional artist. She has shown in many galleries across this fine city and beyond. And I'm very privileged to know her. And I'm very happy that she is here and wants to share her wisdom. When you leave today, there are gifts for you from Lizzie. And she'll probably mention it, but there is a list here of 40 incredible uses for honey, and there are seed packets, which I think she'll tell you why they're so important. So, please bring Lizzie up.
Hi, my name's Elizabeth, and I think that my friends would always count on me to bring them honey. I want to preface by saying that I'm not an entomologist. I didn't go to school to study bugs. I did study art, and my art education taught me to observe nature around me. I've been fascinated by bees, like Sherry said, since I was a little kid. The thought of their stingers always gave me a larger-than-life respect for them. They're so cute and gentle and fuzzy on the outside, bumbling around on their flowers, until you make the mistake of fucking with them. And then they sting you. And when they sting you, they die. Unlike the wasp, which will sting you over and over again. I've always marveled at bees, and I feel as if their vibration truly resonates with my own heartbeat and my pulse. St. Francis de Sales observed, "The bees collect honey from flowers in such a way as to do the least damage and destruction to them, and leaves them whole, undamaged and fresh, just as she found them." I think that is a marvelous model we could learn from. When Sherry told me she was involved in this love church, I asked her if I could share the greatest love story between the bees and their flowers. And I wanted to do it in the springtime when there's flowers everywhere. And I really don't think there's a greater love story. But I want to say that when you see the bees in your yard, those are all females. The beehive is a perfect example of a functioning matriarchy. The ladies do all the hard labor, while the male drones just sit around drooling over the queen, following and fiercely protecting her while patiently waiting to mate with her. She's continuously surrounded by worker drone bees who meet her every need. They give her food, they take out her poop, they do everything for her. And this book, which I highly recommend, by Laylene Paul, I'm going to do a little reading from. It tells the story of Flora 717, a honeybee who speaks about her life in the hive. She's beautiful, she's wise, she's hardworking. And this book also touches on the relationship between the bees and their keeper. It's important to note that not everybody can be a beekeeper. I believe it's truly a calling, but I think we can all help the bees. This is from the book. Flora took pleasure in the delicacy of her approach and studied the ways of the smallest, sweetest bloom she could find. Tiny pimpernels and forget-me-nots hiding in the pockets of the fields. The energy of the sun on her body and the joy of foraging filled her soul. She flew the fields and gathered until the light began to fade, and she heard the sound of her forager sisters' wings turning for home, and she gladly joined them. The love story of bees and flowers is probably more complicated than you even think. Recently, scientists in Tel Aviv started to wonder if it wasn't just animals who could sense sound. What if plants could too? Their experiments suggested that they actually do. They performed their experiments on evening primroses, which have a really long bloom time. And they found that within minutes of sensing vibration from the pollinator's wings, the flowers temporarily increased the concentration of sugar in their nectar. And if you look at the shape of flowers closely, a lot of them are kind of bowl-shaped, not unlike an ear. So these flower petals apparently can pick up the specific frequency of bees' wings while tuning out all the irrelevant sounds like wind and yapping dogs. The scientists found that within 3 minutes of exposure to the recordings of bees, the primroses in the lab increased their sugar concentration by 20%. Their nectar literally rises at the vibration coming from their lover bee. Kind of a flower version of a boner. The scientists' work affirms the idea that it doesn't always take traditional sense organs like ears to perceive our world. People may wonder, well, how can plants hear? It's important to understand that hearing isn't only for the ears, and love is felt and heard on levels that are way deeper than us. The bee and her flower is perhaps the most sacred of all love affairs, and without their dance, our world would perish. Their love child, honey, kind of my thing, is truly all the proof of miracles we should ever need. The sweetness is breathtaking, and in speaking about honeys and bees, there's a few things I want to go over with you today about bees. So here's some facts about honeybees. This is all true. A honeybee colony has only one queen bee. This queen will fly out on a sunny, warm day to a drone congregation area where all the studs hang out. And she'll mate with 12 to 15 drones. If the weather holds, she'll return to that area for several days until she's fully mated. Mating occurs when they're in flight. Just try to visualize that. The queen will store up to 6 million sperm from multiple drones, and she'll selectively release the sperm for 2 to 5 years of her life. In the meantime, the male drones are going to feed, groom, and serve her. The male drones, the male honeybees, will die after mating, but their queen goes on to lay 600 to 1,500 eggs each day during the warm season. Honeybees can fly 5 to 6 miles a day at 15 miles per hour. To make 1 pound of honey, which really isn't that much honey actually, the bees in the colony must visit 2 million flowers, fly over 55,000 miles, and will require the lifetime work of approximately 800 bees. When they bring the nectar to the hive, this is kind of gross, it's regurgitated and passed around mouth to mouth, and this process is repeated until the nectar is put into the honeycomb. The nectar is mostly liquid when it arrives, so some of the worker bees use their wings to fan the honey, which causes the water to evaporate. Eventually, they seal their honeycombs, this is also kind of gross, with the liquid that comes from their stomach, and it turns it into beeswax. And this is what the bees eat over the winter months, and we also use it for candles. So when a bee finds a good source of nectar, it flies back to the hive, and it shows its friend where the nectar source is by doing a dance which positions the flower in relation to the sun and the hive. This is known as their waggle dance. It's their very sophisticated way of communicating without using any words. Again, it's not only mouths and words that express the most important messages that we send out into this world. The brain of a honeybee is the size of a sesame seed. Yet it has the remarkable capacity to learn and remember things and is able to make complex calculations on distances traveled and foraging efficiency. Bees are excellent at and can do an interesting kind of geometric math. They're able to figure out the shortest route possible between flowers. And so far, They're the only insect known to be able to solve this type of math problem. Honeybees' wings stroke 11,400 times per minute. And that's what makes the buzzing sound that excites their flowers. During the chilly seasons, honeybees can live as long as 9 months, but in the summer, the hard-working ladies rarely last longer than 6 weeks because they literally work themselves to death. Poor ladies. Honeybees are the only insect on this entire planet that produce food for humans. Honeybees make a lot of honey. A typical beehive makes between 30 to 100 pounds of honey per year. A productive bee colony makes 2 to 3 times more honey than it actually needs to survive the winter. When the beekeeper harvests the honey from the beehive, they try not to take any more than, they want the bees to have enough to last them through the winter. The bees will work hard all summer to ensure they have enough honeys to sustain them. During the colder months, the bees occupy their time by clustering themselves around the queen, and they shiver. They shiver with their bodies until the hive fills with warmth. But all that shivering burns a lot of calories, so the honey is the perfect high-energy diet for bees and us. Honeybees can recognize human faces. They know they're beekeepers. Honeybees cannot see the color red. Honeybees have been around longer than humans. In fact, there's fossil evidence of bees from 150 million years ago. Honeybees are the only bees that die after they sting. And as an interesting side note, it's estimated that it would take 1,100 honeybee stings to be fatal. And it's only the females that sting. Honeybees are responsible for pollinating 80% of all of our fruits, vegetables, and seed crops on planet Earth. 90% of the food and fiber consumed by humans depends on the pollination of honeybees. And out of 20,000 species of bees on Earth, only 4 make honey. One single bee will produce 1/3 of a teaspoon in her lifetime. Honeybees never sleep. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit about honey, my favorite thing. For thousands of years, honey's been used for food, for drink. You can drink it as a mead. It's been used as a cosmetic. It's reputed that Cleopatra used honey as part of her daily beauty ritual. It's been used for bartering, gifts for the gods. They put honey in the Egyptian tombs for the pharaohs to take to their afterlife. It's been used for cooking, food preservation, and medicine. It's a common cure for anxiety and insomnia. So eating a slice of bread with honey or having honey tea at bedtime can actually alleviate anxiety. And in these stressful political times of Trump, we can all use help with our anxiety. Give it a try, but brush your teeth before you go to bed. Honey has antiseptic properties and was historically used as a dressing for wounds, and they've used it as a first aid treatments for burns and cuts. Bee venom, which comes from the stinger, is given as a shot for rheumatoid arthritis. It's been used for nerve pain, and it's been used in the treatment of MS, swollen tendons, and other muscle conditions. Bee pollen, this is bee pollen. It's considered one of nature's most complete foods due to its comprehensive and balanced nutrient profile. It's a complete protein. It's rich in vitamins, minerals, enzymes, amino acids, and antioxidants. It's like a superfood. And it also has been reputed to enhance vitality. Bees get hurt in the process of making the pollen, so remember to thank them if you put it in your smoothie, which I recommend doing. Honey has been used in art, mythology, legends, literature, and religion. In the Old Testament, the Promised Land flowed with what? Milk and honey. You know, milk being life, and honey the magical glue that holds the world together. According to Greek mythology, Apollo's gift of prophecy was granted by bee maidens. In Christianity, the bee symbolizes wisdom, for bees turn the dust of flowers into the gold of honey. The Prophet Muhammad recognized and recommended the healing properties of honey. Honey and apples are eaten at the Jewish Rosh Hashanah holiday as a wish for a sweet new year. And in Catholicism, Saint Ambrose is the patron saint of bees. He lends his name to the Latin term for honey, which is ambrosia, which also in Greek Roman mythology is described as the food of the gods. Beekeepers still use the term ambrosia to describe the mixture of nectar and pollen that the worker bees feed their little baby larvae. There was another historical figure named Milarepa. He was a famous Tibetan yogi. He killed somebody, and his penance was he forced himself to live in a cave for 30 years, and he lived on nothing but nettles and honey. And in this process, he became so enlightened. It is told that he could fly like a bee. And it's a true story, and there's monks to this very day who are trying to follow in his footsteps. Honey is the only food that includes all the substances necessary to sustain life. Enzymes, vitamins, minerals, and honey is 20% water. So if we're heading to the end times with Trump, make sure you have a lot of honey. Milarepa proved you can live off of it. A jar of honey will never go bad. The jar you have today is going to be good a month from now, 100 years from now, or 2,000 years from now. They found honey in the Egyptian tombs more than 3,000 years ago, as good as they day that they sealed it in the tomb. It never spoils. Raw honey will sometimes change color and crystallize, but it's always safe to eat. If it becomes too hard, just put it on a windowsill or put it in some warm water and it'll come back to life. Don't ever put it in your microwave, ever. Also, I hate to say this, but beware of fake honey. It's out there. The real honey will crystallize. The fake honey from China is mostly corn syrup. It looks real, but it's awful. So always buy it from your local beekeepers or at your farmer's market. And since honeybees are so vitally important to our planet and perhaps our survival, how can we all help the honeybees? Here's number one. Stop using Roundup. Tell your family to stop using Roundup. Tell your neighbors, tell your friends, tell your local hardware store to stop carrying it, and write letters to Home Depot and Lowe's. Costco has already stopped carrying it. You can plant flowers in your garden. Plant them in pots, just toss the seeds and add water. I brought some seeds for you today, as a matter of fact. And if you do buy the flowers from the Home Depot, just make sure that they haven't been treated with neonicotinoids, because that's another chemical that's deadly to bees.
What are neonicotinoids?
Neonicotinoids. It's usually on the little thing that's in the flower pots treated with neonicotinoids, and it's death to bees. Okay? The other thing is, if you don't have a bird bath, just leave out a dish of water in the yard for them. Just put some rocks in there. The bees will come, keep the water fresh. And if you're lucky enough to have the bees grace your water dish, please consider them a blessing in your yard, not a nuisance. You don't fuck with the ladies, they won't fuck with you. Okay? If you see a honeybee staggering around or a little bumblebee, give them a little spoonful of water. That should revive them. Don't ever step on them. Just marvel at them instead. Always remember that our survival depends on bees. I can't believe I'm saying this, but if you see a wasp, swat them with impunity. They're not the same insect at all. Okay. One last time, I'm going to encourage everyone not to use Roundup. Let the dandelions feed your bees. If you must, rid your yard of fleas. This is a leader. Just pull them out. But leave a few for the honeybees, please.
Oh,
They love clover, they love dandelions, and researchers have found that even if you use a little bit of Roundup on your dandelions, it decreases their sensitivity to sucrose. It leads to a decreased ability to track and find their food. Exposed bees also exhibit poor learning performance, a decreased ability to smell, and poor memory. Bees exposed to the glyphosate, the weed-killing chemical in Roundup, tend to exhibit higher frequencies of colony collapse disorder. That's when the beekeepers let the bees go and they never come back. If the poor ladies happen to come back with tainted nectar, the rest of their colony suffers as well. Exposure to glyphosate through tainted nectar impacts the entire hive's ability to function normally. It really fucks them up, so don't use Roundup.
Don't use it.
Don't use it. Now, it is debatable whether Einstein actually said, if the bees disappeared off the face of the earth, man would have 4 years left to live. They think he said that. It is true that without them, many humans would perish due to starvation. The honeybee population has been dropping steadily over the past 10 years. The National Agricultural Statistics Service has reported that the population has dropped from 5 million to 2.5 million. 1 out of every 3 bites of food we eat is from a crop pollinated by honeybees. Honeybee pollinated plants make up a $20 billion worth of crops just in the United States alone. If the honeybee population continues to decline, the effects on the food supply will be disastrous. The United Nations Environmental Program reports that of the 100 crops that provide 90% of the food for all of us, including animals, 71 require honeybee pollination. And as our beekeepers continue to report 40 to 50% disappearance within a hive, how can we not be concerned? Our lives depend on the love affair between the bee and her flower. Try to think of bumblebees as little tiny fairies sent to the earth by the divine creators of this universe, whoever they are, to be our guides on how to live a life of perfect harmony within our hive and in nature. Every bee knows his or her place. Every job in the hive is as vital and important as the queen laying her eggs. They all work hard, and they don't use their stingers unless they have no choice. They pollinate our fruit trees, our blueberries, and our flowers, and they work tirelessly on making us sweet honey. The benefits of honey are too numerous to count, but I left them back there for you. 40 reasons, actually, 40 good reasons to use honey. So God bless our honeybees.
God bless our honeybees.
They need our love, they need our understanding, and they need our protection. So plant flowers, give them water, don't use fucking Roundup ever again. And every time you take a bite of honey, just remember how remarkable it is and what it took to bring it to your tea. Have gratitude for all they do and let their love story be our love story. And I want to end this talk with a poem from the prophet, Khalil Gibran. So it's kind of a seriously beautiful poem. So close your eyes for a second. And now you ask in your heart, how shall we distinguish that which is good and pleasure from that which is not good? Go to your fields, go to your gardens, and you shall learn that it is the pleasure of the bee to gather honey of the flower. But it is also the pleasure of the flower to yield its honey to the bee. For to the bee, a flower is a fountain of life. And to the flower, a bee is the very messenger of love. And to both the bee and the flower, the giving and receiving of pleasure is both a need and an ecstasy. So, be in your pleasures like the flowers and the bees.
Woo!
Do you guys want to do a bee meditation? Sure. You want to do a bee meditation? You want to send out some love for the bees?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll just cut the.
Now that there's you have all this information about bees now, let's send out a little blessing to them. And I feel like, I wish we were closer, but so in yoga, when people think of yoga, they think of the exercises, right? But there's the pranayama, the breath part of yoga, is another way to connect to the great bumblebee in the sky. And so the yogis of thousands of years ago came up with this Brahmari breath, which is a bee breath, which is sort of like, a way to connect to the bees. And you have to suspend adultness for a minute, because you have to kind of be like a little kid when you do the bee's breath. I wish it wasn't so noisy, but because we're gonna send out a vibration, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna take an inhale and then an exhale. We're gonna take an inhale and then an exhale, and then on the we'll do an inhale, and on the exhale, you kind of send out this humming sound like this. Everybody breathes at their own rate. So what you do your inhale, and on the exhale, we're going to do this round 10 times at our own pace. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our hands like this. We're going to put our pinky and our thumb together. And we're going to visualize the most beautiful flower that we can ever imagine. Okay? And we're going to inhale and hum out 10 times, each at our own rate. We're all going to hum at different times, but it's going to sound like a beehive, and we're all going to end around the same time. So you ready? It's going to be fun. So inhale. Exhale. Kind of changes the molecules in the room. It's bee's breath from Mari breath. Okay, that's it. Thank you, Lizzie.
And if Lizzie didn't say already, there are seed packets there, and the reason the flowers are so important, I think, are evident in the information that you provided for this. So thank you.
Yeah, just
so
scratch the ground, and then it has all the soil and the seeds already in it. And then just add water every day, and then you'll plant flowers for them. It'll be great.
She has a pot of honey at the back, and some toothpicks, so you can taste the honey from her honey hives. And so thank you for sharing all that richness with us, Lizzie. Thank you so much. We're going to move our chairs into a circle, and we're going to play